Hello and welcome, I'm Liam, music reviewer, resident Weezer boy here, and today we're going to be doing a little feature as opposed to a review or a ranked piece, and it's really going to be about the Mercury Prize, which today announced their shortlist for this year's award ceremony, which I think takes place in September. But if you do not know what the Mercury Prize is, it's a British award ceremony, takes place every year, has done since 1992, and is seen as an alternative to the Brits. The Brits is another award ceremony that takes place in Britain, that kind of focuses more on kind of commercially viable acts, those that appear in the charts. So it's kind of seen as, the Mercury Prize is kind of seen as more representative of like critically acclaimed artists, a bit more of a kind of prestigious award, if that makes sense. Not obviously to talk down on commercially viable acts, because they can still be a lot of fun as well, but it's kind of seen as more like the indie award, the one that's cooler, even though there's been a lot of acts such as Blur, Damon Albarn specifically saying that it's like having a dead albatross around your neck if you win the Mercury Prize. But yeah, essentially my whole goal prior to this video was for me to talk about acts or albums that should have won the Mercury Prize in their respective years. But the more I was reading into it, I was talking to my pal Jake from the podcast about it, and I just started thinking to myself that there's really a more interesting story to be found in here that isn't just my thoughts on whatever the shortlist is for this year. I've already seen the shortlist, think it's pretty dull, but again, we'll get into this. It's going to be kind of 3 big points that kind of explain why I think there's kind of a problem with the Mercury Prize, why they need to sort it out. But I want to kind of give this like a prelude of, well, I don't actually hate the Mercury Prize. I find it a lot of fun in analysing the shortlist, of coming up with like my dream shortlist, like dream nominations, having conversations with people like, oh, who should have won, should have they even been considered, sort of thing. There's a lot of fun to be had with it. It's much like the Grammys, where I feel you can still enjoy it, or the Oscars as well, where you can still enjoy it, but you do need to start thinking about like how it all works and start to critique it, because if you don't critique things, then they're just going to kind of go on as normal. They'll see it as a it's not broken, don't fix it, and I don't want to kind of be totally silent on it. So now that I've made that clear, let's get into my 3 points. The first one being pay to enter. So with the Mercury Prize, essentially what you're having to do before you even get your foot in the door to even be considered for a nomination is to pay an admission fee, which is something I didn't know about until a day or two ago when I've also started researching for this video. So think for a second about a band like Radiohead. Now with the Mercury Prize, you usually get 2 sort of acts, maybe 3. One, somebody you've never heard of; 2, someone you're vaguely familiar with that you've heard mentioned in NME or somewhere like that; and the third one's usually some sort of either big critical darling like Radiohead, PJ Harvey, or somebody that's kind of like Alt J or something like that, somebody that you have heard. And Radiohead being a big AAA artist, they're the most nominated act in the Mercury Prize. When it comes to paying the admission fee of £228, which is about 30 quid of that is VAT, that's chump change to them. That is not money they have to kind of worry about. So really, when it comes to that, these sort of acts, it's not something they're going to bring up, because really they probably don't even have to think about it. Whereas when it comes to independent labels, underground acts, it's going to be really difficult for them to make some sort of, even to get their foot in the door, like I say, because that 200 plus quid could be better spent for them, or not even like so much better spent, because I'm sure they want to be nominated, but the fact is, like studio time, touring fees, promotion, all that, like there's so many things, and not that I've been involved in indie label, but just these general things, it's not a cheap business, and it's just, it is very exclusionary as far as I'm concerned. Let's look at the Brits, which, like, as I say, the alternative is going to be the word that I use to death here, but the Brits is seen as the alternative, and to be considered for the Brits, all you have to do is essentially have a single or an album that's made it into the charts. According to the Brit site itself, It's around about 510 albums and over 1,000 singles. So, and while you could obviously make the argument that, well, you need a lot of money to even be considered for the charts, which I would agree with to a certain extent, because obviously you put a lot of money into promotion and mastering and like making like a total chart hit, but it's not like we've had songs that have entered the charts that really have managed to get there without really having that big like studio push in that. So for me, that seems a lot more kind of representative of like promoting smaller acts than anything. Obviously the Brits are gonna eventually end up going on for an act that they can get more figures and like viewing figures and go like, oh, so and so has been nominated. But the point still stands that that's still a lot more democratic, in a sense that it's not just people having to pay money to even be considered. Like, just make it into the top 40, that's you, you're there. I just find having to pay to enter is just a very exclusionary kind of way of going about it. I just don't think it's that fair, especially for the price they're considering. If they had to pay, like obviously they have to pay for like a venue and all that, like surely they could make it a bit more affordable. That way you're getting more acts and you're going to have a lot more varied kind of just music and as well. So in turn, the selection of stuff you've got is going to be more representative of the current culture around at the time. But yeah, that's basically my first main point. And my second point is one that's been kind of talked about for a little while and is still kind of ambiguous, and that is the Mercury Prize all that democratic? So a wider issue with the Mercury Prize kind of comes from the voting process, or at least it used to, because back in 2013 Josh Halliday wrote an article for The Guardian where he wrote that Mercury Prize critics have taken aim at the undemocratic nomination process. The judges are not named until after the winner is announced, and it's often an offensive Album of the Year shortlist. Since then, the Mercury Prize has decided to announce its judges ahead of time. For 2018, it's going to be the likes of Marcus Mumford, who it's already been nominated for the Mercury Prize for Mumford & Sons in some sort of weird sense, the Laura Marlin album that he helped with. DJ Clara Amfo and 10 others are joining the voting panel. So obviously they've taken some criticism to heart and like sorted that out with the voting panel being very kind of transparent of who's been involved. But that's 12 people on the judging panel, and I think like when you look at a poll on Twitter when it comes to politics, 12 people is not indicative of the general sense of what is like important. It's not representative really of what is important. And while I'm not asking for the Mercury Prize to meet the Brits' expectation of I think it's 1,000 people on that voting panel, officials from labels and that, which again you can make the argument the Brits aren't all that democratic considering that there are people there that have other motives, other like they've got kind of some sort of gain from it. But that's not to say that the Mercury Prize couldn't involve more, like, well, they involve journalists here, and the journalists that involve are from newspapers like The Guardian and The Times, which have music sections which subjectively I think are a bit naff, that really they put the least amount of effort into their music journalism as possible. I don't see why when it comes to involving journalists they don't go for places like DIY Mag, The Skinny, Metal Hammer, just magazines that either are like utterly dedicated to music or have some sort of like bigger section that is a lot more fleshed out, that taps into audiences and genres that the Mercury Prize just doesn't really represent all that well. And with the voting panel of 12 people, you're probably gonna, I think that kind of says a lot of why it's such a safe kind of shortlist, because you're only talking to 12 people. You get people from Metal Hammer, you get people from like a lot more underrepresented kind of places, and that you're gonna get better representation in terms of the music you're listening to, and that's kind of like something that we'll lead up to in the next point. That leads us smoothly on to my last point, which is variety or the lack thereof. I think the Mercury Prize does a better job at representing like just genres of music better than the Brits do. Like, I've been defending that quite a fair bit because I do think it gets tarnished quite a lot, and I'm not its biggest fan, but I can defend it on some of these points. But I do think in terms of the variety of music, it's very pop orientated, maybe some rock music there, but it's very like by the numbers, and Mercury Prize does a better job of representing R&B, grime, rap, even people kind of like Benjamin Clementine that are doing stuff that really isn't quite in the charts or anything like that. So it's good in that sense. But I do think that the Mercury Prize is becoming a bit of a husk of itself, considering that you see more and more acts like Ed Sheeran last year get nominated. You see other acts like Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds are being nominated. These are acts that are both going to be nominated for a Mercury Prize as well as a Brit, which I feel is kind of counterintuitive. Like, it just feels like these labels are basically not abusing, but they see that, oh, you have to pay to enter, we're going to stand a very good chance if we put our music in. And obviously the Mercury Prize is needing this money, and they're probably thinking to themselves, well, if we accept it, then they're gonna keep coming back when it comes to next year's list and that. That's how I see it. Maybe that's a bit kind of tinfoil hat kind of stuff talking here, but and even without that in consideration, I don't think acts like this are making that kind of like culturally important stuff. And even other artists, like the belated David Bowie, when he made Black Star, a very important album, both culturally, critically, in all different regards. But really, what do the acts have to benefit from winning the Mercury Prize? I feel these kind of positions could be better taken by a smaller act. Like just this year alone, I could think of Idols, I could think of Sophie, I could think of Shame, that just deserve that place. Even Young Farrs didn't get considered. They've won the Mercury Prize, so I wouldn't be so annoyed. But the fact that there's a lot of established kind of acts that keep popping up, and it's obviously because they're able to pay money to get in. It's not really anything to do with the best person wins. It's kind of just it doesn't sit all that well with me. I don't know how they could go about sorting that. If maybe there's like some sort of like cap where like if an act's too commercially successful, like what do they really have to gain there? Why not go put themselves into the Brits instead of the Mercury Prize? Keep the Mercury Prize as the award that kind of gives these smaller acts, because even if you don't win, you still get such a push from it. So the Mercury Prize is essentially kind of like good promotion. So what does Ed Sheeran have to gain from having a Mercury Prize nomination? I don't see why the Mercury Prize can't just see itself as trying to like kind of just try and be that award that it kind of used to be. It's not always been perfect. Even back in 1992, people still had their complaints in its first year. But really, I think they could do a better job with variety. My last point on that will be how certain genres just aren't represented well enough. Metal especially. Triple Gum by Therapy is the only metal album to have ever been nominated for a Mercury Prize, which I think is pretty daft, because there's a lot of good British metal and hardcore music that is more than eligible for consideration. Enter Shikari being quite a prominent one, at least with a lot of their earlier stuff. They've obviously gone in a more popular direction, but I don't think that really has an effect on my opinion here. Rollo Tomasi and Pulled Apart by Horse, these are all acts that could easily be nominated, even if Pulled Apart by Horses are more kind of hardcore, still very much in the same ballpark as something like metal, so I don't see why they don't get that consideration. And like I say, all this stuff is interlinked. My problem with variety can kind of be considered by the pay to enter thing, where a lot of smaller acts can't actually be eligible unless they pay over 200 quid. My opinions on variety and the Mercury Prize can be indicative of the voting panel itself not being big enough, not being varied enough in terms of background. It's all quite interconnected, and I'm not here to basically just complain all day, because it's not fun to complain all day, but I really just want to say this because I feel it's important to talk about it. I know it's stuff that maybe the Mercury Prize, if there's enough people talking about it, sharing it about, and that they can take it on board. It's not like it's not happened with the Oscars and whatnot, when people were complaining about there not being enough racial diversity. And while I don't think what's happening with the Mercury Prize just now is like, I don't know what the right word would be, like it's not quite as there's not like a racial bias or something like that going on with it. There's usually like a good mix of different races and genders and whatnot, but it's more kind of like in a cultural sense of keeping this importance of an award. There is things that have to be fixed. What I'm asking isn't really revolutionary. at all, and maybe there's stuff that I've overlooked, and like I say, let me know if you disagree with me in general, in specific points, if you agree with me. Just let me know, because it's been fun to do this feature, and hopefully I can do more of these sort of things in the future if you guys will allow it. But yeah, that's basically been my video on why the Mercury Prize is kind of flawed, the problems with it. I don't know what I'll go with name wise, but as always guys, thank you for watching, stay safe and stay hydrated.